Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning,
Rufai.
What a weekend it's been.
Oh, God.
Yes. What a weekend. I've been on a bit of a sugar rush, just like keeping up to date with everything that's been happening over the weekend. So let me tell you what's happened.
You're Biden.
Let's not start that, Rufai. I'm a person of the people. Okay. Whomever the people choose is who I'm with.
You don't
Okay, well, let's start with our global brief. Our global brief, of course, centers on American politics. President Joe Biden had stepped down from the election race. In a statement released on Sunday, Biden told the American people that it had been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it's in the best interest of my party to stand down. Now, responding to that, former President Barack Obama, who did choose Biden as his own vice president for both of his terms, released a statement saying that he knows Joe has never backed down from a fight, Rufai, but for him to look at the political landscape and decide that he should pass the torch to a new nominee is one of the hardest decisions in his life, but one he believes was right for America. It's worth noting that while President Obama did stand behind and support Biden, he didn't actually explicitly endorse Kamala Harris. Staying with that, though, President Biden himself, of course, did endorse his own Vice President Kamala Harris to be the Democratic presidential nominee, and he released this update via X where she says, she thanks the President Biden for his extraordinary leadership and says that she is honored to have his endorsement and confirms that it is her intention to earn and win this nomination. Now, in support of that, the Clintons have also rallied behind Kamala Harris, and in their statement, they say that nothing has made them more worried for their country than the threat posed by a second Trump term. He has promised to be a dictator from day one, the Clintons say, and now is the time to support Kamala Harris and fight with everything they've got to elect her. America's future depends on it. Now, within an hour of Mr. Biden's announcement, the pro-Trump Super PAC campaign fund, named Make America Great Again, posted an advert attacking Kamala Harris, claiming that she covered up Joe's obvious mental decline. And in submission to that, Trump also added that whoever the left puts up now will just be more of the same. He also said that we are forced to spend time and money on fighting crooked Joe Biden. He polls badly after having a terrible debate and quits the race. Now we have to start all over again. Shouldn't the Republican Party be reimbursed for fraud in that everybody around Joe, including his doctors and the fake news media, knew he was not capable of running for or being president? Just asking. So this is the parlay that we've been dealing with ever since President Joe Biden announced that he would not be seeking re-election. And as I said, the Obamas came out in support of Joe, definitely something that had been expected these coming weeks, but they did stand short of formally endorsing Kamala Harris. I think there's some sort of reservation where they don't want this to be a total coronation of the vice president. They do want there to be some form of a process, and which is why she said that she is dedicated to earning the delegate vote. What do you guys think?
Quickly. That is being pushed by Nancy Pelosi. She doesn't want it to be a total coronation.
Nancy Pelosi didn't say anything. She hasn't come out just yet.
But sources in there, that's what Nancy Pelosi wants, and that's what she's pushing for. And that's why you see that a couple of people too are already looking at having a last stab at the fight. People like Senator Joe Manchin, 76-year-old, I don't know how he's going to do it. He's been falling out with the Democratic Party for a while. In fact, he even thought about an independent run for presidency, but now he's going to also come into the race. He wants to come in. I don't know if that's going to be possible. But definitely, since Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris, I think the party should just coalesce around Kamala. I mean, I kept on making the point. I know, yeah, you were a real believer, but I know also that once the case of your mental acuity is questioned, Americans will never tilt towards you. I think, yeah, my memory is right, I think it happened to Barry Goldwater in the 60s elections and all of that. And this is the very first time a candidate is going to pull out of the race after he's run the primaries. The last time we had something close to this was LBJ's time.
Yes, where he was entitled to a second term.
He was entitled to a second. In fact, he ran in the New Hampshire primaries.
Right.
But when he did badly in the New Hampshire primaries, he pulled out. So he ran in one primary. But Biden won the primary this time around. So this is a new ball game entirely. Real quickly, they are looking at some VP picks. I will favor Senator Mark Kelly, astronaut husband to Gibbons that was shot in the Arizona shootings and things like that. Also, a couple of people are also saying, why don't you pick a governor for most of the battleground states, the likes of, the Corys of this world, the Pritzkers of the world, the Bashirs of this world, and a couple of other governors, the big man. Some might even say a woman.
As well.
Woman, yeah. Pete Buttigieg, for an America at this point in time, Pete might be a little bit iffy, because if you pick a Pete, most of the southern states, definitely you will be losing them because of Pete's sexuality. You cannot forget that. And also the fact that you are fighting a lot of hard-line rightists, right-wing people that will probably also push that in the campaign and say America is not ready for this and all of that, So I will not say, so it's pretty much sort of like a safe zone, somebody that can fight across the lines, somebody that probably will have to come from one of those battleground states like Arizona. Like, I would terribly favor Emma Kelly, because he has a great hero story,
right.
Former astronaut, key American hero and all of that.
Right.
But at this point in time, in the bid of trying to make Kamala fight for it, the Democratic Party must also show a united front at convention. They must not go to convention and start a scamper, because it's also going to play into their hands, because they have no time. They've just got about 4 months to all of this. So they must be able to coalesce around this candidate and ensure they put their best foot forward. It's going to be a tough run for them, because the MAGA movement is strong. Let's not deny that fact. I'm still calling it Trump victory, but at least they have a stab at the fight. And I think they should quickly also flip the narrative now that Trump is the oldest candidate.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Kamala has already raised so much money just in this first 24 hours.
Announcement, yes. Okay, so the first question I asked when this news came out was, is America ready for a female president? But even more so, is America ready for a female president of color? Honestly, I know that we don't want race to come into the elections, but of course it's going to feature in the elections,
Absolutely.
just as with Barack Obama. And I believe that's perhaps one of the things that's making some people hold back in terms of their obvious support. But spot on, Rufai, in terms of the fact that as the Republicans try to demonstrate during their convention in terms of a united, positive front, it's going to hurt their campaign further if they do not show a united front. So it's either they make up their minds now in terms of begin to, those bases, consolidate those bases, they say she's been calling people, that's Kamala Harris, VP Kamala Harris, and also this week she's going to be doing a lot of traveling to try as much as possible to gain this much needed support. She has said that, like you said, she would earn this. So she's going to, in quote, fight for this and demonstrate that she is the best person for the job. But beyond that, a number of people have also molded the idea of, should President Joe Biden step down and give her the opportunity, so an early resignation, so that he gives her the next few months to demonstrate what a Kamala Harris presidency would look like. In terms of, as vice president, or as all vice presidents are, it's usually muted, just following the president, not showing as much, of course, beyond her antecedents in terms of her previous leadership roles, but it's a different ball game as president. And so what people want to see more of, or would like to see, I would assume, is the idea of Kamala Harris being president and what that would look like. So if the Democrats are still wanting to be in this race, because a lot of people are now calling it Trump landslide, but if they want an opportunity to still be reckoned with in this race, they're going to have to give Kamala Harris that much needed support. I don't think any of the candidates that are coming out are going to do as much in terms of, I think it would then be more obvious that Trump is going to win if someone else comes up. I think the best option for the Democrats at this point is to consolidate their base, to ensure that they put all the support and make her seem like the best thing since sliced bread, and no other option would work for America, and America is ripe. In fact, possibly spin the race issue as, America is ripe and ready. And it's great to see the Clintons support her, especially Hillary Clinton, who also was hoping to be the first female, president of Nigeria. So conversations around that, I do agree with that. I don't know if President Joe Biden is going to agree to step down in terms of, or if at the best case scenario, give her more opportunities to come out and really show. We need to see her as president. And Trump saying that he needs to be reimbursed, I thought that was the funniest thing. I'm looking forward to hopefully, if Kamala Harris emerges as candidate, a Trump-Harris debate. That would be something to watch.
Exactly. Would you be looking forward to that, Dr. Rubin? Because I do think as a prosecutor, she is someone who could really stick it to Donald Trump. President
Biden has made history. The oldest American president in history. And also the first sitting American president since 1968 to withdraw from the race. The last person that did it in 1968 was Lyndon Johnson. And the main challenge that Lyndon Johnson faced was the lack of popularity arising from America's involvement in the Vietnam War. Before then, it was George Washington in 1796. So he will be the third person and the second person in modern times. However, it was a seismic decision. You recall that before now, he kept insisting that he would remain in the race, even as at Saturday afternoon. When he took that decision at 1:30 Eastern time on Sunday, even the White House staff were blindsided. Washington Post talks about his triumph and also the tragedy of a 50-year career. Well, he's been in Washington since the age of 29 when he became active in politics. And now at old age, he has had to step aside. For what reasons? One, what we saw during the debate with President Trump when he was freezing in the course of it. Two, the attempted assassination of President Trump on July 13. That also changed the calculus. Three, he came down with COVID, and now he's in isolation in Delaware. And that was when he said, look, if his medical condition would not allow him to go on, he will step down. Number four is the pressure from senior Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, President Clinton, and others, and 40 other Democrats writing a letter advising him to stand down. I think what he has demonstrated is one, leadership. Two, patriotism, because he says he's doing it for his party and for, country. And that's why he says, okay, Democrats, let us work together and beat Trump. Let's do it. Well, would they be able to do it? That remains to be seen. Kamala Harris, that he has endorsed, is of Indian descent and also of Caribbean descent. So you have a black woman and a South Asian blood. Would that work with the electorate? But the endorsement that he is given gives Kamala Harris an advantage. Now, what should be noted is that the National Democratic Committee Chairman, Harrison, has said that they are going to follow democratic procedure, and the rules and regulations of the party. What that means is that, yes, Kamala Harris may have been endorsed, but it doesn't mean that she's automatically there. The governors of Illinois, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Jerry Cooper, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, these are some of the people who are, the Arizona governor also, who have shown interest in the race. Two, Kamala Harris will need to get Biden's supporters. Now, three, they will have to go to the convention, August 19. It starts on August 19. And you will need the majority of the delegates to endorse the person that will emerge. Now, if nobody gets an outright majority, then they have 700 super delegates who will now decide. If still there is nobody that has a majority, then they will continue the process until a majority, the majority chooses someone. So it's still a long race, and there will still be developments in the days ahead. Where the funders, the bundlers, they are now bringing money, but it doesn't mean automatically that Kamala Harris will still end up as a Democratic nominee. However, characteristically, President Trump has been saying all the negative things. He says, Biden should not have been in the race in the first place. He says he should be in the basement. But in any case, history has been made. We are concerned. We are showing interest. Today is 106 days to November 5. It's the Americans that will decide eventually.
Indeed.
But, global leaders have reacted. They've been praising President Biden for his statesmanship. He's going to remain president for the next 6 months. But in terms of his career, it could be said of him that he has done well, in a career that is over 50 years, in the course of which, as Washington Post is saying, he suffered some personal tragedy. He lost 2 sons in the course of that struggle. He lost his first wife. He lost his first wife also. But today, he has decided that, well, let America move on. That's the kind of patriotism that I think we would like to see among our leaders in Africa, who we want to, make sure that they drop dead no matter what. But it's good that President Biden has given the Democratic Party an opportunity to re-energize his base and give Donald Trump the fight that he deserves.
And I'm glad you said that now, because it seems as though they've neutralized that age aspect. Now they can't attack the Democratic nominee on his age. Now, if we're talking about age, you could be talking about Donald Trump's own age. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
The race now is Donald J. Trump.
Sure is. All right, well, that was a lot of fun. Let's move on to our newspaper headlines across the world. We begin in Nigeria with the cover of This Day newspaper. And the cover of This Day newspaper, firstly, the picture story that jumps out is a call for President Tinubu to pay for this woman's insulin medication. She's suffering from diabetes. She says that she's lost the sight in one eye, and she's calling on the presidency to use the funds from Nigeria's sugar tax to pay for her diabetes medication. It's quite a hard-hitting front page there. And then to the top of This Day, we see that Zenith Bank has retained its position as Nigeria's #1 bank by Tier 1 capital for 15 consecutive years. That is a huge feat for the leadership at Zenith Bank there. And then, of course, there is a mention of Biden quitting the presidential race, which is what we've just talked about, and then also what we're seeing with ECOWAS and the like. So if we move on from This Day to the front of the Daily Independent, the Daily Independent is still harping on, naturally, this situation with Labour dumping its fight to reverse electricity tariff hikes. Also, there's a focus on stakeholders looking at banks losing the battle to tame fraud as well as insider abuse. And then also one story that has dominated a lot of the domestic papers in Nigeria is the latest with Dangote too. If we take a look at the Vanguard now, the Vanguard looks at the threat facing Nigeria's economy with 1.4 million barrels per day crude output. The NNPC saying that Nigeria can produce up to 2 million barrels per day. And then we also are talking about this with the front cover of The Punch. The front cover of The Punch looks at the federal government's demands of the Dangote refinery to release its diesel report and orders a new test. And then lastly, still talking about this situation with Dangote and his oil, if we look at the Daily Trust, Dangote has told the NNPCL to buy him out, essentially. And he's also invited regulators, as we heard at the very beginning of this show, to come back for testing at any time. He's also thereafter called off his investment in his steel plant, or the steel plant ideas he had. Ayo, you'll remember that when we were in the Bahamas, we spoke to Aliko Dangote himself. And that was after listening to his plenary session where he discussed what he calls the oil mafia, and how many people in his camp, outside of his camp, saying, listen, building a refinery perhaps might not be the best use of your resources. It's going to be a very difficult fight. And he persevered through this. So to hear him talk about oil mafia back then in Bahamas and to see this in real life, and sadly the mafia is his own countrymen, it is quite disappointing to see.
We see it play out, and I mentioned that I'm glad that he had the opportunity to tell his story, and that's the power of storytelling. You must share in terms of the journey towards what we see today, what a lot of people praise today, what people have said is a game changer in terms of oil output, in terms of being able now not just to keep on exporting our crude oil and importing it at a higher price in terms of its products. But beyond that as well is to see that it's more, I think it's more painful when it's your own people that are in Nigerian parlance doing you. It's more difficult, and then it speaks of what it means to do business. Some people say, citing, the airline operator who had come out and how he had talked about some sabotaging within our own people, and then now Dangote. In fact, the joke in town is that if Dangote can complain, then there's no hope for the Nigerian. But these are very serious issues. He had talked about how, and like you said, a number of people didn't even believe in his dream or in his vision, that he was audacious. In fact, almost tantamount to madness. But he still went ahead to do it in the interest of Nigeria. And look at what we're getting. After he has invested $19 billion, and then you say that, it doesn't have, he's not, the first thing that came out was that he wasn't fully licensed. The second thing now is that, the crude, the sulfur quantity, ppm is high. It's inferior to import to foreign crude. It is ridiculous. Right. And, we talked about earlier that they should take this off the press. It shouldn't be the regulatory agency authority coming out to demarket and indigenous organization, especially when it's money that he's worked and, tried to source against all odds again.
Because if truly the oil products were bad, then
exactly. And I'm glad that I love the headline of This Day Newspaper, Fights Back. He cannot keep quiet. He came bearing receipts, and then he had the opportunity to host members of the House of Representatives so they could see, he showed working, and they could see themselves to see that this is working. I'm hoping that they would come to a conversation, and beyond that, the NMDPRA would retract what they've said, especially with regards to the sulfur content of his crude. It's not just for the Nigerian market, it is the foreigners. We saw one of the headlines where they said that a number of foreign countries want his crude. So it's also it's also positioning for external. If Nigeria doesn't want his oil, the others who want it abroad. Yes. So it's very sad, and to see that now he's now pulling back his investment prospects of investments in other industries, including steel. It's not just sad for him, like I said. It's sad for other business owners or people who want to invest locally in Nigeria.
You see, I think we can take a big learning for America and as regards businesses. The question I keep asking is, the American rail infrastructure, how did America build it? The likes of Cornelius Vanderbilt and a couple of other people were given huge concessions of right-of-way to be able to build a rail line. And the American government helped a great deal to be able to bolster those businesses. Right. And they had a very big rail union. And it opened room for a lot of entrepreneurship. Look at the likes of, what's his name now, Andrew Carnegie. When he came in normal Scotsman with nothing, but they opened up the steel industry to him. I am not saying we should not also talk about conversation as regards, regulating anti-competition activities and all of that. No, absolutely. Because the Americans who I'm quoting, when they saw that could be a problem, they set up something called the Shaman Act in the late 1800s. Sure. But also, they gave room for private enterprise to be able to grow. And that's what builds an economy. Look at South Korea, General Park Geun-hye. Most of the subventions they got for America invested it in companies that were shables then, that are the big multinationals like Samsung, Hyundai today. Right. So what do we do as a country? We need to be able to grow our own businesses. Businesses in countries will always have cadres, just like the Japanese have their Zaibatsus. The likes of your Dangote, your other top companies here are your own Zaibatsus. You must be able to cater to them, because also in catering to them, you must also cater to the small businesses. Sure. That's how you build an economy. And
talking
you do not have
businesses. Sorry to interrupt you there.
And the ECOWAS and the 38 million thing. So that's why I'm happy about what ECOWAS is doing as regards 38 million thing. I'm also happy about what African Development Bank has been doing as regards small businesses. But the truth is, the best you can also do for them is to be able to support them. Because this is in turn this business to support the nation. During COVID, what did America do? America paid the salaries of the workers because they know when this business do well, they will pay taxes. And the Dangote you are fighting is one of your biggest taxpayers in the country as we speak. It's giving you revenue. If Dangote says, okay, I pack up my refinery, pack up everything, you heard how much he pays in VAT in a day alone. So if he says, I'm packing up everything, I'm going to put the money in some offshore account in Europe or America, let it accumulate interest, you will be the one to lose tax revenue. Sure. So it's in your best interest to support business. That's why England paid furlough schemes. The furlough was government paying salaries of workers because business cannot produce during COVID, so that this business, when they do better, they'll be able to pay taxes.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a number of domestic issues to comment upon. Now, first, on the Dangote issue, we've been discussing this subject since Friday. The only thing to add to it is that people who say it cannot be done should not disturb people who are doing it. Here in Nigeria, a number of people, the moral of the story is that there are many people who are saying, oh, it cannot be done. All those people trying to discourage Alhaji Aliko Dangote. Now he has done it. They are saying he should not do it. What kind of country do we have? And it's not just, this reminds me also of the experience of Mr. Allen Onyema. When, he expanded the operation of Airpeace and he started flying to London. It's our own people. He was sitting where you are sitting now. It's our own people here that were not supporting him. In fact, when the plane returned, they packed him at the worst part of the airport until he protested. So that is the kind of thing. I think it's something about this psyche of Nigerians. That's that about that. Now, the second thing is the front page of This Day. I find it very interesting that the vice chairman of the National Diabetes Association has put out that advert to create awareness about diabetes. The reference is to sugar tax that the government says is going to impose. I think it's about 20%. Well, the people in that industry are complaining, but it's not only in Nigeria that they are trying to tax beverages. In the UK, the concern is about obesity.
Right.
Now, he is saying that, look, people who are suffering from diabetes, they should be assisted by government. And I think that that's an important thing because diabetes is also a very serious killer, and many Nigerians suffer from it. Even if the doctors will end up telling you it's not only about insulin, it's also about lifestyle. And I hope that Nigerians will also learn, and try to educate themselves about the implications of this. So very catchy advert, very striking. Definitely. So it's not just the picture. People should try to get the
information, the story behind it.
Finally, I just want to comment Nigeria Diaspora Commission. I think I saw a story that indicated that they've just rescued 58 more persons who have been trafficked to Ghana. Collaboration between NIDO Ghana, based in Accra, and also the Nigerian Diaspora Commission. Mrs. Abike Dabiri and her team, they appear to be doing a good job in this regard. Over 100 persons now that have been trafficked, rescued from Ghana alone. So, but they say they will take consequential steps to get NAPTIP, to arrest the agents, and to make sure that people are discouraged from trafficking in persons, which is an offense anyway, under our laws.
Let's move on to our continental papers across the African continent, and we take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation of Kenya. And essentially, there is some form of a tacit warning, or at least a pleading from William Ruto to the Gen Z, saying enough is enough. This is ahead of planned protests due to take place tomorrow. And essentially, what William Ruto is saying is that I have tried to meet you more than halfway. You didn't want the bill, we repealed the bill. You didn't want my cabinet, I've changed almost everybody in my cabinet. So I think what he's asking for at this position is a little bit of leeway, a little bit of grace from the protesters. As I said, they are planning on taking to the streets again tomorrow, and he is essentially saying enough is enough. Will the protesters listen? I doubt it. We'll find out tomorrow. That being said, let's take a look at the Citizen SA, and there's a little bit of discussion about agriculture here. Farmers, can't we just talk? Essentially, there is some back and forth between the government and the people over this agriculture and agri-processing master plan. And essentially what the people are saying is that focus should now be on profitability. If we now move from our African papers to our international ones, we take a look at the Daily Express, and there are no surprises for guessing what dominates British papers and American papers this morning. Definitely Biden quitting. That is, of course, quite a somber face. Essentially, it did say that when he was telling his staffers yesterday afternoon, local time, that he was planning on stepping down, his mood was very somber, and it's reflected in this front page. And then, of course, there's a Daily Mail, which kind of looks at what Biden is going through, but also looks ahead to the future. That's the front page of the Daily Mail, where it essentially says Biden out and Kamala in. Kamala also is pictured on the front page of Time magazine. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was quite a fitting one, where you saw Biden towards the end of the page, and you saw Vice President Kamala Harris stepping in. So it's definitely one where the world is accepted this at the end of an era. This is a huge political legacy that he has enjoyed for more than 50 years. I think it's something that he should definitely be proud of. And I do think that looking ahead to this election process, it is definitely going to be interesting. American politics always very interesting.
Fantastic cover on Time magazine, right. August 5 edition, showing Kamala coming in and a man in a suit, presumably Biden, at the edge of the page. Thank you very much. And the